In 2014, GoPro was worth over $10 billion. The company dominated 67% of the global action camera market. Its IPO was one of the most hyped tech debuts of the decade. Athletes, filmmakers, and everyday adventurers couldn't imagine capturing action without one strapped to their chest. The brand had become a verb. But just 10 years later, GoPro's market cap has collapsed to around $115 million. The stock that once soared above $90 now trades for pocket change. The company that revolutionized how we capture adventure is now fighting for survival, bleeding hundreds of millions in losses while competitors have stolen its crown. This isn't just another tech company that got disrupted. This is the story of a brand that had everything: market dominance, cultural relevance, and a product people actually loved, and still managed to lose it all. I end this video. I'm going to show you exactly how GoPro went from being the undisputed king of action cameras to a cautionary tale studied in business schools. We'll explore the brilliant decisions that fueled their meteoric rise, the fatal mistakes that triggered their collapse, and the brutal market forces that turned a billion-dollar empire into a penny stock. And if you stick around until the end, I'll show you the one place that perfectly symbolizes everything that went wrong. A building that tells the entire story without saying a word. To understand how spectacular the fall was, you need to understand how legitimate the rise actually was. This wasn't some flash-in-the-pan startup that got lucky. GoPro solved a real problem that millions of people had. The year is 2002. Nick Woodman is on a surf trip in Australia, trying to capture quality action photos of himself riding waves. He quickly realizes it's basically impossible. Professional surf photographers use expensive equipment and need to be in the right place at the right time. Amateur surfers like him? They're out of luck. You couldn't capture your own adventures in any meaningful way. This problem wasn't unique to surfing. Rock climbers, skydivers, snowboarders, mountain bikers, every extreme sport had the same issue. The action was happening from a first-person perspective, but cameras weren't designed to capture it that way. They were bulky, fragile, and required someone else to operate them. Woodman saw the gap. He started Woodman Labs in 2002 with a simple mission: create a camera that could go where traditional cameras couldn't. At first, he was literally selling shell belts out of a VW van to fund the project. His parents kicked in some capital. It was scrappy, bootstrap entrepreneurship at its finest. In 2004, GoPro released its first product, a 35mm film camera called the Hero. It was basic, but it worked. More importantly, it worked in conditions that would destroy a normal camera. You could mount it, wear it, drop it, get it wet. The timing was perfect. YouTube had just launched in 2005. Suddenly, there was a platform where anyone could share videos with the world. People were hungry for authentic, first-person content. They didn't want polished TV production. They wanted to see what it actually felt like to backflip off a cliff or surf a massive wave or ride down a mountain at 60 miles per hour. GoPro did the opposite of everyone else in the camera industry. While Canon and Nikon were focused on megapixels and sensor size for still photography, GoPro focused on durability and perspective. While traditional camera companies sold through specialty photography stores, GoPro sold through surf shops and sporting goods retailers where their actual customers hung out. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel. The product market fit was undeniable. Athletes and adventurers finally had a tool that matched their lifestyle. And when they shared their GoPro footage online, it became the best marketing the company could ask for. Every epic video was essentially a commercial that made other people think, I need to get one of those. But here's what really made GoPro unstoppable in those early years. They had created something that was incredibly difficult to replicate. First, there was the brand advantage. GoPro became synonymous with action cameras the same way Kleenex became synonymous with tissues. When people saw incredible first-person footage, they didn't ask what camera it was shot on. They just called it GoPro footage. This brand dominance meant that even when competitors emerged, they were always positioned as GoPro alternatives rather than legitimate standalone options. Second, GoPro had built an ecosystem that locked customers in. They developed mounting systems, accessories, and editing software specifically designed for their cameras. Once you bought into the GoPro system, switching to a competitor meant replacing everything. That friction kept people loyal even when other options appeared. Third, and perhaps most importantly, GoPro benefited from network effects through content creation. Every YouTube video shot on a GoPro was free advertising. Every Red Bull athlete using a GoPro validated the brand. Every surf competition, skateboarding event, and snowboarding championship featured GoPro logos and footage. The more people used GoPros, the more other people wanted GoPros. The company also made smart distribution decisions. They built relationships with major retailers like Best Buy and Target, making their cameras accessible to mainstream consumers, not just hardcore athletes. They expanded globally early, building retail networks across Europe, Asia, and Latin America. The 2006 Digital Hero added video capability, which was a game changer. Now you weren't just capturing still photos, you were recording entire experiences. And as technology improved, each new model brought better video quality, smaller size, and more features. The Hero 3 Plus introduced Wi-Fi and a more compact design. The Hero 4 brought 4K video in 2014, which was cutting edge at the time. This allowed them to grow faster than anyone thought possible. Revenue was climbing. Market share was climbing. The brand was everywhere. And investors were taking notice. June 26, 2014. GoPro goes public at $24 per share, raising $427 million and valuing the company near $3 billion. The IPO is massively oversubscribed. Within months, the stock climbs higher and higher. By October 2014, GoPro's market cap exceeds $10 billion. Think about that. A company that started with a guy selling shell belts out of a van was now worth more than many Fortune 500 companies. Nick Woodman became a billionaire. The media couldn't get enough of the GoPro story, the scrappy startup that disrupted an entire industry. The numbers backed up the hype. GoPro dominated 67% of the global action camera market. They were selling millions of units worldwide. Athletes and celebrities were posting GoPro content constantly. Red Bull athletes used them. The U.S. military used them. Filmmakers used them for shots that would have cost tens of thousands of dollars with traditional equipment. The Hero 4, released in late 2014, was flying off shelves. GoPro wasn't just a camera company anymore. They were a cultural phenomenon. The brand represented adventure, authenticity, and living life to the fullest. They sponsored athletes, events, and content creators. They were everywhere you looked. Investors believed GoPro was just getting started. The thinking went, if they could dominate action cameras this thoroughly, imagine what else they could do. Drones? Virtual reality? Live streaming? The possibilities seemed endless. At this moment, in late 2014 and early 2015, it looked absolutely unstoppable. GoPro had won, but there was a problem that nobody wanted to acknowledge. It had been there from the beginning, hidden beneath the growth and excitement and soaring stock price. And that problem was this. GoPro was a hardware company selling a durable product in an increasingly commoditized market. Let me explain what that means. When you buy a GoPro, you don't need to replace it every year. Unlike a phone that people upgrade constantly, or a subscription service that generates recurring revenue, an action camera is basically a one-time purchase. You buy it, you use it for years, and you're done. Maybe you upgrade eventually, but there's no inherent reason to do so unless it breaks or the new features are genuinely revolutionary. This worked when the market was growing, when millions of new customers were discovering action cameras for the first time. But what happens when everyone who wants an action camera already has one? Growth stalls. And for a company valued at $10 billion, stalling growth is catastrophic. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel. The second hidden flaw was even more dangerous. Low barriers to entry. Yes, GoPro had first-mover advantage and brand recognition, but the actual technology wasn't proprietary. There were no patents preventing other companies from making small, durable, mountable cameras. Any electronics manufacturer with decent engineering could create a competitive product. And unlike software companies that benefit from network effects and switching costs, there was nothing technically stopping a GoPro customer from buying a different camera next time. Sure, they'd lose their mounting accessories, but those weren't expensive. The ecosystem lock-in was weak. The third flaw was cultural. GoPro had built its brand on extreme sports and adventure athletes. That was a relatively small market. To justify a $10 billion valuation, they needed mainstream adoption. But mainstream consumers don't go surfing or skydiving regularly. For most people, an action camera is a nice-to-have, not a must-have. And nice-to-have products are the first things cut when budgets tighten or alternatives emerge. This worked for a while. The flaws weren't fatal yet. The market was still growing, competitors were still weak, and the brand was still powerful enough to command premium pricing. But these flaws had planted the seeds of something dangerous. And in the years that followed, every single one of them would bloom into a crisis. The first crack appeared in the smartphone market. In 2015 and 2016, phone cameras were getting really good. The iPhone 6s introduced 4K video recording. Samsung's Galaxy phones had optical image stabilization. Google was using computational photography to produce images that rivaled dedicated cameras. For casual users, the question became, why carry a separate action camera when my phone can shoot 4K video? Sure, a GoPro was more durable and had better mounting options, but for filming your kid's soccer game or capturing vacation memories, a phone was good enough. And good enough is the death of premium pricing. GoPro's addressable market started shrinking. The millions of mainstream consumers who might have bought a GoPro were now satisfied with their phones. That left GoPro increasingly dependent on hardcore enthusiasts and professional users, a much smaller customer base. But the smartphone problem was just the beginning. Competition was intensifying from every direction. DJI, the Chinese drone manufacturer, saw an opportunity. They had expertise in stabilization technology and miniaturized cameras from their drone business. In 2016, they launched the DJI Osmo action camera, which directly competed with GoPro. It had comparable specs, better stabilization in some modes, and cost less. DJI's distribution network in Asia was stronger than GoPro's, giving them an advantage in the world's largest consumer markets. Then came Insta360, another Chinese company, which focused on 360-degree cameras and innovative features like invisible selfie sticks and AI-powered editing. They were innovating faster than GoPro in certain categories. Budget competitors from China flooded the market. Brands you've never heard of were selling action cameras for $50 to $100 that were good enough for most people. Yes, GoPro still had better build quality and features, but the gap was narrowing. And for price-conscious consumers, saving $300 was hard to ignore. GoPro tried to maintain premium pricing, but their value proposition was eroding. The Hero 5 and Hero 6 were solid products, but they weren't revolutionary enough to justify the price premium over competitors. Unit sales started declining. Revenue growth stalled, then reversed. By 2017, it was clear GoPro had a serious problem. The stock had already fallen dramatically from its peak, but investors still believed the company could figure it out. After all, they had the brand, the distribution, and the resources to innovate. But instead of doubling down on what made them successful, making the absolute best action cameras in the world, GoPro made a catastrophic decision. In September 2016, GoPro launched the Karma drone. This was supposed to be their big move into a new product category. Drones were hot. DJI was dominating the market. GoPro wanted a piece of that action. The Karma wasn't just a drone, it was a system. It came with a stabilizing gimbal that could be removed and used handheld. It was portable with a compact folding design. The marketing was slick. The pre-orders were strong. This was going to prove that GoPro was more than just a one-product company. And then, disaster. Just weeks after launch, Karma drones started falling out of the sky. Multiple users reported catastrophic power failures mid-flight. Drones were crashing into trees, water, buildings. It was a safety nightmare and a public relations catastrophe. GoPro had no choice. In November 2016, they recalled all 2,500 Karma drones that had been sold. The financial hit was immediate. Hundreds of millions of dollars in losses from development costs, manufacturing, recalls, and destroyed brand credibility. But the damage went deeper than money. The Karma disaster shattered the perception that GoPro was a company that made bulletproof products. Their entire brand was built on reliability and durability. You could trust a GoPro in any condition. The Karma crashes undermined that trust. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel. Worse, it exposed serious issues with GoPro's ability to execute outside their core competency. Making cameras and making drones require different expertise. GoPro didn't have the engineering depth that DJI had built over years of iteration. They rushed to market with an insufficiently tested product, and it backfired spectacularly. The company eventually re-released the Karma in 2017 after fixing the issues, but the damage was done. Nobody trusted it. Sales were abysmal. By January 2018, GoPro shut down the entire camera business. Around the same time, GoPro was making another strategic blunder. They decided to become a media company, producing original content and building a platform for user-generated videos. The logic seemed sound. If millions of people are shooting GoPro footage, why not own the distribution? But the media division was a money pit. Producing quality content is expensive. Competing with YouTube, Instagram, and other established platforms was impossible. The initiative generated almost no revenue and was shut down by 2018. These diversification attempts did more than just lose money. They distracted management from the core business. While GoPro was chasing drones and media dreams, their camera lineup was falling behind. Competitors were closing the technology gap. Each new hero model felt more iterative than innovative. The company was bleeding cash, missing earnings targets, and losing market share. By 2018, the market cap had fallen below $1 billion, a 90% collapse from the peak. What followed was a slow-motion collapse. There was no single moment when GoPro died. Instead, it was a steady erosion of revenue, market share, and relevance. Let me know in the comments if you like my video. Please subscribe my channel.